Okay, Namo Om Vishnu Badhaya Krishna Bhastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Devasesha Sunyavadi Pashtatara Satanine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Okay, let me share it again then. And bring up slide. Okay. I presume you can see what I can see, semblance of devotion and Lord Chaitanya, but I've just got tempted to go back a couple of slides though, briefly to go over what we discussed. We were speaking about the conversation, the subject was speaking about Bhagavad Gita verse 7:16, Chatur Vida Bhajanti Mam. I can remember that. It's a well-known verse. Four types of persons, pious persons who come to Krishna. We had some discussion on that, but specifically the discussion focused on the need for all of these four types of persons to actually come to knowledge. And for that, we went through the story of Dhruva Maharaj and how, by the blessings of the Lord, that his semblance of devotion became pure devotion, and that happened through his attaining transcendental knowledge. Yeah, so the emphasis here is that development of transcendental knowledge is very important in our devotional development. Yeah, and then we quoted, or this is Maharaj quoted. To remember, this is a study by Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj. So then he quotes Bhagavad Gita 4:10. Vita raga bhaya krodha manmayamo paschutaha bhavo gana tapasa mat puttamat bhavam agataha. So being free from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. And this is the point. Many persons became purified by knowledge of me. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? Sometimes we may ask, how can I get purified, Prabhu? By developing knowledge of Krishna. So that's how a semblance of devotion can be purified. And that was the case with Dhruva Maharaj. So we discussed that. And then we brought out this indirect path to Krishna. And we were quoting from the Srimad Bhagavatam, a well-known verse, Kamo Shabu Kamo Moksha Kamo Udaridi Tipurena Bhakti Yogena Yujeti Purusham Param. So do you remember we made a correlation between this verse where it's encouraging everyone to come and practice devotion, even if it's not pure. And then Maharaj's was quoting Jiva Goswami, who was quoting the second verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Dhamma Pachitta Kateva Paramo. Can anyone perhaps remember that discussion? There seemed to be a contradiction, an apparent contradiction in these two verses, 1.1.2 and 2.310. Bit of a technical question. If you don't know the verse, then it might be difficult to pinpoint the apparent contradiction, because this second verse of the 112 of the first chapter Bhagavatam says that Bhagavatam kicks out all materially motivated religion. Yeah. So it kicks out semblance of devotion. But later, Sukadeva Goswami, I think it's Sukadeva Goswami, second canto, he's speaking, seems to glorify semblance of devotion. Do you remember that discussion? So can anyone perhaps give us an insight into how can we accommodate this? We have covered it. It's it has been a general discussion. It's probably more simple than you think. So the question is, second verse of Bhagavatam, it says this Bhagavatam kicks out all religion which is materially motivated. But here, devotional service, which is materially motivated, is being encouraged. Can anyone perhaps finish the piece in the puzzle.
I can take a chance.
Yes, that's always,
The first verse speaks about an indirect way of
yeah.
devotion, and the second one is actually the pure devotion, which is devotional service.
Yeah, I mean, do you mean the other way around? The first verse speaks about pure devotion, and the second verse we're quoting. Yeah, I mean that's correct. But perhaps a bit more. What's the what is going on here? I mean, you're correct. One is speaking about devotion, which is not pure, or encouraging devotion, which is not pure, which is not materially motivated. But this verse here seems to be encouraging it. This is this is a Jiva Goswami calls it cheating religion. If there's any material motive at all, it's cheating. So Dhruva was a cheat before he attained perfection. So was Gajendra. So are we to one degree or another. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Vijay.
This verse, yes, Murli Prabhu, thank you very much for having me. Dandavat Pranams Prabhu. This verse is reminding me of Krishna chanting to Arjuna in his Bhagavad Gita that a little effort can save you from the worst kind of danger or something
Yeah.
of the sort.
Yeah, you're on the right track. Yeah. Anyone know that verse? The Sanskrit? Even a little advancement on this path can save one from the most dangerous type of fear. I mean, yeah, you're more or less going in the right direction. So basically, what we're trying to bring out here, or what is brought out here, is that yes, pure devotion is characterized by no other material motivation, but at least someone can make a start. So even if there is some material motives, don't go to the demigods. Go to Krishna. And through that semblance of devotion, in the association of devotees, you will become purified. Yeah. So that's the piece of the missing puzzle of these two verses, and that's what, and when we discussed this in our last class together. So yeah, thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. You put us in the right direction. Well done.
You're welcome.
No problem. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So yeah. So then coming here, let me just summarize what we discussed. So then we've been discussing the semblance of devotion. And so what is its relationship, or for those who are following Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So we are followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are in his Sankirtan movement. Hari Bol. Yeah. So then we brought up a discussion of Ramananda Roy. It's called the Ramananda Samvat in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Wonderful discussion between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy. And Ramananda and Lord Chaitanya, he asked Ramananda Roy, what's the goal of life? Basically, let me get what he's saying exactly. Yeah, no, that's correct. He asked him to recite a verse from scripture concerning the ultimate goal of life. And the first thing he said was a semblance of devotion. Yeah, so in other words, offer your prescribed duties in Varnashram. That's the means to perfection. But then Lord Chaitanya said, Ekobhai, this is external. Please, can you tell me some other means? Then he mentioned, we won't go into all the details of the whole discussion, but eventually, Ramananda Roy came to the point where he's speaking about loving devotion as the ultimate goal of life. And the means to attain that goal of loving devotion is pure devotion. Yeah, by pure devotion, you can attain loving devotion. You cannot attain it through a semblance of devotion. Your devotion has to become purified. So Lord Caitanya accepted that. So what's brought out here, because it's not part of his Sankirtan movement to guide devotees on the path of semblance of devotion, the path that Lord Caitanya is giving through the medium of chanting the holy name and serving the Sankirtan mission is based on pure devotion. So that's what you're going to hear when you attend classes, etc. You're going to hear all about the attainment of pure devotion. So in other words, Ramananda Roy was describing the indirect path. And Lord Caitanya wasn't satisfied until he heard the direct path. Okay. And then just missing a couple of slides. There's someone, Mother shouted, oh yeah, she left, Hare Krishna. And then we read, he had this quote from Lord Thakur, who's more or less, who's saying this. In Kali Yuga, the indirect devotional paths of speculation and work are extremely narrow and hazardous. Originally, they were intended to lead one to the shrine of devotional service through the company of saintly persons or through the process of offering to the Lord the results of work reformed without desire. In Kali Yuga, however, both paths are contaminated. One rarely sees saintly persons because pseudo-spiritualists have replaced them. And among religious duties generally, religious duties generally are no longer performed for purifying the consciousness, but merely for enjoying material results. Therefore, the secondary paths are no longer useful. Okay, but I was just thinking about this earlier on, but we should also, as we discussed before, we should also be able to recognize those who are preaching to or those who are coming to devotion. Do you remember that discussion we had some time back, that they may not be ready to fully embrace the path of pure devotion? Their attachments may be quite strong. So we don't discourage them. Instead, we encourage them to continue what they're doing, but to take up some aspect of devotional service. Yeah. We don't try and frighten them away with telling them, surrender everything right now. Shavadamam Pariyajya. Give up everything. Yeah, they may be too attached. So then we develop friendship, we develop affection and friendship with them, and we engage them in activities of bhakti. And that's described in Bhagavad Gita as well. Not to disturb the minds of the ignorant, but to engage them in acts of devotion by which they will get purified. Okay, so just added that there. Yeah. And starting here now. Now, this we haven't discussed, so that was just a little background of where we were. Okay. So further analyzing, as Shiva Maharaj does in great detail, as we said before, he doesn't leave a stone unturned. So now we're looking at the four kinds of persons that we mentioned, Chaturvida Bhajanti Mam, into two categories. So karma-misra-bhakti and jnana-misra-bhakti. So the person who's distressed, someone who's seeking wealth, and the inquisitive, they come under the title of, let me get this, of fruitive workers. So karma-misra-bhakti. So karma means work, yeah, I think, and mishra means mixed bhakti. Okay, so you're going to hear this word a few times, karma-misra-bhakti. So this, again, the four types of persons can be analyzed into these two, karma-misra-bhakti and jnana-misra-bhakti. Yeah. So, and someone who's seeking knowledge is jnana-misra-bhakti. Okay, so, and Srila Prabhupada, he adds one more, yoga-misra-bhakti. So he adds a third category. Yeah. So therefore we have devotion. So all these may be practicing devotion, but they're mixed. Yeah. Someone may be practicing devotion, but it's mixed with karma, with fruitive intent. One is wanting something in return. So that means that devotion is mixed with karma. So therefore it's called karma-misra-bhakti. So, or one might be seeking empiric knowledge about the world. Why am I here? What's it all about? What's the meaning? What's the meaning of life? Yeah. So that person, they may practice some aspect of devotion to try to not to to get knowledge. So let's call jnana-misra-bhakti. And then there's mystic powers, fantastic mystic powers, which can be quite attractive to some. So they practice some type of devotion, but they're doing the devotion in order to get mystic powers. So their yoga, which is also another name for bhakti, or there is a mixed. Yeah, it's mixed. Okay. So there's quite a bit of technical terms coming up today. I hope it's okay. I try and go slow and try and explain it so for myself as well to try and get a good understanding of it. So now we're looking at karma-misra-bhakti. And this is a well-known verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yat kuroshi yat ashnasi yat tuhoshi dadasi yat yatat pusikuntaya mat kuroshi manapanam. So this verse comes after Pattam puspam phalam tayam yomi bhakti prayatati. So this verse is generally considered to be directed to those who are practicing karma-misra-bhakti. So we explain how that is so. So one way to look at it is it's saying here, whatever you do, whatever you're attached to, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, or whatever austerities you perform, do that as an offering unto me. You understand? According to your material conditioning, you're going to offer that to the Lord. Yeah, so that comes under the karma-misra-bhakti. All right. Any questions along the way, please feel free to ask. And please, devotees, you can. Some can put their camera on. It'd be good. We have, unless you're putting, unless there's something going on drastically in the background, it's okay. Okay, so please, if things and any questions, please feel free to ask because it's really good to understand it step by step. So yeah, so even if someone's engaged in some type of sacrifice, even if it's imperfectly performed, those who are attached materially, they can become purified because they are in touch with the Lord. Yoga, means to be linked to the Lord. Now, I just read this part here, I'll put in bold to make it more clear. So in accordance with the particular nature one has acquired in conditioned life. So whatever you do with our body, mind, senses, intelligence, we should offer everything to the Supreme. Now, this sounds like pure devotion, but as we analyze here, it's not. So this will become more clear. So we should think this is for the pleasure of Lord Narayan. Yeah, so in other words, we should offer everything to Krishna. And then Maharaj also quotes Shuddha Swami. One should offer, not only should devotees offer to the Lord those things prescribed according to religious paths, etc., but they should dedicate to the Lord all activities performed according to their personal natures. Now, to be understood as well, this sometimes gets confusing. Say you got a pure devotee. Yeah, someone is purified and they're rendering pure devotee. They will be doing all these things. Yeah, naturally, given their whole body, their whole mind, everything. But the inspiration to do that, or that will be kind of a side natural phenomena of their spontaneous attraction to rendering loving devotional service to Krishna. All right, so we're not at that point, and we have attachments. We have things that we like to do or we like to eat. So we like to eat pizza. So we offer that to Krishna. Okay. And we like to do art, and so we offer that to Krishna. And that will purify us. And that's good. But that's called, I will explain more. It's called, another term we're going to bring up here is aropa-siddha-bhakti. Okay. Now, what's that? What is aropa-siddha-bhakti? There's a slide here next. We're going to get into it a bit. Now, it's took me a few years to understand this aropa-siddha-bhakti. I can remember reading it before and trying to really understand what it actually is. And it wasn't, and just this recently, I've been studying it and looking at it for this presentation. And I got a little insight into what it actually means. So, aropa-siddha-bhakti, so it refers, so I had it, let me just look here. I looked on that. So, yeah, so aropa-siddha-bhakti refers to actions that are not inherently devotional in nature, like your work. It's not inherently devotional in its nature, but so like your work, but they can be transformed into bhakti when they're offered to the Lord. You understand? So it's a form of devotion that's achieved by superimposing bhakti onto other activities and offering them to Krishna. So you're kind of elevating them to a devotional status. Okay, it's quite technical, isn't it? So that's aropa-siddha-bhakti. So again, actions that are not inherently devotion, like going to work or, yeah, they're ordinary karma, but they can be transformed into bhakti when they're offered to Krishna. So you're superimposing bhakti onto other activities and offering them, which this is what we should be doing. So that's aropa-siddha-bhakti. Any questions on this? It's quite interesting, isn't it? It's quite. Mabu Shawnee looks deep in thought. Yeah, so Jaivad, you have your hand raised?
Sorry, Prabhuji. Is it possible to give an example so that I can understand a bit better about this, please? Is it possible?
Yeah. Let's just say, again, yat koroshi, yat ashnashi, whatever you like to do, you've got your particular type of occupation that you may engage in according to your nature. So it's not inherently bhakti like Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, like we describe that later today, if we get there. It's something that you do according to your material nature. But you can transform it into bhakti by offering it to Krishna in sacrifice, by offering the fruits of your work, for example. So you're superimposing bhakti upon your otherwise material activities. That's called aropa-siddha-bhakti. And it gets more technical, but we won't go so much because I was listening to one devotee. What's his name? He's a very well-known Sanskrit scholar devotee. He was speaking about aropa-siddha-bhakti. I might think of his name in a minute. And he was describing even the things that you may do wrong or your slip in devotional service. Say someone breaks one of the regular principles by accident, not by plan, but then they offer that regret. They offer that kind of no, what's the word? Regret. It's a word when you repentance.
Repent, yeah.
Yeah, and that becomes a devotion. So that becomes a devotional offering. So that's also known as aropa-siddha-bhakti, where even if there's a mishap on your devotional path, you may eat something or do something or whatever, which is outside of our devotional practices. But then you offer that, oh my Lord, my Lord, please forgive me, and then you've connected that to Krishna, and that purifies you as well. That repentance will actually purify you, and it's good. So in a roundabout way, it becomes a devotional act. Aropa-siddha-bhakti. That's another aspect of it. But Shiva Maharaj doesn't bring that aspect up here, but I remember listening to that explanation by this devotee. Think of his name before the class ends. Yeah. Okay, does that help? Yeah. Now, let's take an example. Say someone has, do you remember we had that discussion on reflective semblance of faith and shadowy semblance of faith? And say someone has a shadowy semblance of faith. They've taken on some Mayavad philosophy, but they're not a Mayavad at heart. They've heard Mayavad philosophy and they haven't heard the philosophy of pure devotion, and they kind of take it on. So they don't have faith or knowledge in Krishna's eternal form, but they may engage in some aspect of or upasana or worship, because even for the Mayavadi, worship of the Lord is favorable for their being able to bring their senses under control. So they may engage in some activities of bhakti. So, but they don't have faith in the Krishna's eternal form. So, so they're materialistic. So they're serving the deities, for example, but they consider the deity to be representatives or just to represent the absolute truth, not the absolute truth. The deities are atra vigraha, but they see it as a representation of Brahman. That's their misconception, that the form of Krishna is coming from Brahman as a whole subject. We won't, yeah, and it manifests from Brahman in a sattva. So when Brahma contacts sattva, it takes on the form of Krishna. That's Mayavad philosophy. Yeah. So they may do archan, they may do puja in the morning, ring the bells and do puja to their pictures, but they think but they think they're engaged in devotional service, but they're not, because devotional service without faith and knowledge can only be a semblance of devotion. It looks like they're ringing the bell, they're doing the incense, but because they don't have faith in the eternity of the deity or Krishna, and they don't have knowledge, then it's actually a semblance of devotion. Yeah, it's not actually devotion. Yeah.
Is it like a habit from
Is it like it?
like a habit?
Yeah, habit, bad habit. But these things can change when someone comes in contact with the devotees who are practicing pure devotion. And that we might not get there today, but we'll be speaking on that. Yeah. Now that's also called aropa-siddha-bhakti, in that it's attributed. So although aropa-siddha-bhakti is not pure, it does help devotees become regulated in specific rituals in their worship to Krishna. And even they may surrender the results of their work. So it paves the way for steadiness to the path of pure devotion. Okay, so I gave an example not of a real Mayavadi, but someone who's got some Mayavadis, some misunderstandings, and they innocently engage, they're worshipping, but don't really understand the full tattva about Krishna and the eternity of Krishna. They have some misunderstandings. But that contact with Krishna is going to help them. As long as they don't start blaspheming devotees or blaspheming Krishna, then that's another destination for them. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this? On aropa-siddha-bhakti? So aropa-siddha-bhakti here, we're looking at it in conjunction with karma-misra-bhakti. Yeah. So we've got karma-misra-bhakti is actually the aropa-siddha-bhakti, where you impose bhakti upon your otherwise material activities. Okay. So we're going to look at now this time check. Okay, I'll pass. Jnana-misra-bhakti. So we discussed karma-misra-bhakti, jnana-misra-bhakti. So this is interesting, this verse. It's actually Lord Caitanya, again in discussion with Ramananda Roy, quotes this verse as well to Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's definitely relevant for those who practice in pure devotion, but but actually it's very much speaking about jnana-misra-bhakti, because one who's thus transcendently situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman. They're not realizing Satchit Ananda Krishna, from which Brahman comes from. And from that, they become fully joyful and they reach some transcendental stage where they have no lamentations about the world or desires, etc. They become spiritualized. And as a nature of that, they become equally disposed to every. Now, in that state, it's a whole subject. In that state, one can attain pure devotional service. Okay, so let me just look. Yeah. So this is when devotional service is mixed with empiric knowledge, jnana-misra-bhakti. So the means or the motive is Mishra, is not to develop love for Krishna, it's to develop knowledge. Yeah, your bhakti that you're doing is mixed Mishra because your main purpose in life is just to gain knowledge. Just to gain knowledge, knowledge. Which there's Divyagan, there's transcendental knowledge, but the goal is loving devotional service to Krishna. Now, also it said, Bahunam Janaman Anti Ganaman Mampapatite Vasudeva Samati Sa Mahatma Sudulabha 719. After many births and deaths, the Gani, by the grace of the Bhaktas, will come to pure devotion. Because if you're cultivating knowledge seriously and you're exhaustively cultivating it, you have to come to the ultimate if you're blessed by the association of devotees. So that may take many years. Yeah. So actual saranagati or surrender to the principles of pure devotion, that's going to take place when such persons are blessed with the association of pure devotees. Yeah. So they will engage in acts of devotion, they will fan their devotion. Yeah. Then they get purified. Yeah. Now, as we mentioned before, among those with a semblance of devotion, Krishna favors the jnana-misra-bhaktas over the karma-misra-bhaktas. Might be a difficult question, but I'll ask you just to keep here. So, why does Krishna favor the jnana-misra-bhaktis over the karma-misra-bhaktas? So the karma-misra-bhaktas are fruitive; they want something in return. But the jnana-misra-bhaktas,
Can I
please, yeah.
answer? I think because through jnana you can actually realize the Brahman, but through karma,
Well, yeah, but correct, they can, but they're not actually. They have a relative purity about them compared to those who just want things, from Krishna. They actually just want knowledge. So they're not wanting something for them exactly. It's some relative purities there in comparison to the karma-misra-bhaktas. So that's why Krishna prefers. That's why Krishna speaks of them when he mentions the four. Then he glorifies the jnana-misra-bhakta. Okay, because they're somewhat relatively not completely pure, but they're not after something. Then you could say they're not so selfish. They want to develop knowledge about life. What's the meaning of life? What's the goal of life? Yeah. Now, if they don't get the company of Suddha Sattva or pure devotees, then their affinity for moksha, liberation, yeah, can make them, Maharaj describes, use the word callous to Krishna's names, forms, and pastimes. So that's a danger if they don't get the association of devotees, that their quest for liberation, they will become critical, they become callous to Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Yeah. And that can lead them to fault finding. Yeah. Remember many, many years ago in our temple, we had this Western yogi. He was quite accomplished, actually. He had big dreadlocks, about 2 foot on his head. been in India, he know Hindi, whole thing, been staying ashram for I don't know how long. But he was a Gani. He was a yogi aiming for some type of mystic insight into the world. So he kind of come to the temple, and he saw devotees taking prasadam, and he became very critical of devotees taking prasadam. Because devotees like to take prasadam. And there's like young brahmacharis there, and they're going out all day to distribute books. So they have a big breakfast. About 2 inches off the plate, sometimes, big breakfast. And he became very, very critical to the point he became quite unpleasant. And he couldn't stay in association devotees because he became he couldn't, And I just remembered that. He couldn't, so you need the association of devotees. Yeah. Now, everyone's following, yeah, getting a bit technical here. So these persons, they may practice mauna sometimes. They're attentive to principles of being tolerant. That's the practice they do. That's why they expose themselves to serious gyanis, to different dualities of the world. One time I saw this video of one such yogi who was standing on one foot somewhere in the Himalayas. He was standing on one foot in monsoon rain. The rain was just coming down in buckets, and he was just standing there in his yoga asana. So he's standing there when the rain comes, when the sun's there. Yeah. So now they maybe also practice celibacy. Also they try and develop, the mode of goodness, they're clean, etc. Okay, now we get.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes,
Can I
please,
just ask something, Prabhu?
please.
Sorry.
Who's this?
Prabhu, I was thinking,
Oh,
this
Padma Mother. iPhone 2. Go on.
earlier slide, Prabhu.
Okay.
If they
Oh,
they are very proud, and also they don't have love, but in a karma, like always, they just want to show that, okay, we know this. So this could be the reason that Krishna Lord is not speaking about them first.
Okay. Yeah, you could say that. It's
Yeah,
really
because they are
good.
proud, and also they don't have love, basically.
Yeah.
They just want knowledge.
Yeah, this one. They may.
And but just like the other part, just like a child going to the father asking, I want this, because there is some kind of relationship, love. So you go and ask something from the Lord. So
Yeah.
there is a connection there.
Yeah, now that's true. Their motive may be quite corrupt, but because they're linked somehow, even if it's corrupt, there's a link to Krishna. There is some link. They're not like the gross materialist. In one sense, from the perspective of pure devotion, you could say, yeah, they're gross materialist. According to Jiva Goswami, they're just cheaters. But there is some connection there. And given guidance and given time and guidance, then there's a chance that they can get purified. So then a chance that they can develop some actual pure devotion and affection for Krishna. But your point is very valid. Thank you for bringing that up. And if anyone wondered what this picture, it's not at all connected to the discussion. I just had to find a picture to put in, and this is Radha Damodar. These are the worshipful deities of Sarup Damodar, associate of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, now being worshipped by Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj. Okay, this is Radha Damodar. Is that okay, Padma? Thank you for that contribution. Okay. Okay, I've got mixed up my slides here. I'm going different places. Okay, sorry. Okay, so let's go here. Now, as we discussed before, devotional service, there is no material cause for it. Remember, we had that whole discussion on someone may think piety leads to devotion, but no, if someone's pious, in their pious life, they may happen to be kind towards or give donation to the devotees. So that's an actual act of bhakti. So from that may lead them to become a devotee by the act of the unknowing act of devotion. Remember, we had that whole discussion on that. That was a few weeks back. So devotional service is independent of it is caused by bhakti. Bhakti causes bhakti. Nothing material causes bhakti. Yeah. So it appears in that sense it's not materially caused. Now the qualities and the practice in the mode of goodness, if someone's, there's plenty of people in the mode of goodness. Has anyone met someone in the mode of goodness who's not actually a devotee? Anyone? You met someone who's got sattvic qualities, as though they haven't chanted any rounds for their whole life? Anyone out there? Oh, I've got no cameras on now. I'm lost now.
I would say my mother-in-law.
Okay, no problem. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I would
Your
say my
mother-
mother-in-law is like that.
Yeah. You're going to meet them, especially come from a pious Hindu tradition. Very pious, So nice people. Nice. And so you're going to see that. But intrinsically, I mean, it's good. But it really becomes valuable when they're in touch with devotion. So, in one sense, being in the mode of goodness is good, but it's not going to save you from birth and death. It's not going to take you back to the spiritual kingdom. And there is a chance that at some point that sattvic or piety may become adulterated. That's the nature of this world, So when it's disconnected to bhakti, symptoms of goodness, then Marge describes it here. It can be like a decoration on a dead body. Right now, it doesn't mean we don't encourage people to be good. People should be good. If they can't be devotional, at least teach them to be good to each other. But actually, these sattvic qualities, as we mentioned, of the Gyanis, etc., unless they're connected to Krishna, then it's not ultimately of any favor for them. Ultimately, it's like decoration of a dead body. Yeah. So sometimes what happens is that these Gyanis, or let's say empiricists, they're not trained in the principles of pure devotion, but they think that cultivating the qualities associated with devotion, like principles of sattva, that means they're actually practicing devotion. You come across that where someone is practicing truthfulness, or they're practicing tolerance, but they're not practicing bhakti, but they think by being truthful and tolerant, they're actually spiritual. Anyone come across that before? You think sometimes we meet people, they're very, they're convinced that, they're completely spiritual because of their sattvic qualities. Yeah. So they think it's equivalent to actually practicing devotion. Now, there's a nice example of this. This is from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. A really nice story. Once there was the really austere Brahmana. Now, he was really austere. He was really pure-hearted, really austere. So, for example, he only drank milk. Yeah, he was completely celibate. So he was a brahmachari. And he only drank milk, and there was no sin that touched him at all. And so it's it's quite impressive. Huh? Just drank milk. Yeah. So every day, because the kirtan will be going on behind the scenes in the house of Srivasa Thakur. So gradually, the persons in the village or the town became to know of this. It became known. There was all types of accusations were being towards those things. Oh, they're drunk, so they're howling and wailing at night. But some of them were really, so this Brahmana, he was asked, Srivasa Thakur, every day he would come and ask to see Lord Chaitanya's dancing. Can I see? Can I see? So it began to, he began to, have some effect on Srivasa Thakur. And Srivasa Thakur began to consider, actually, this person, he's a really Paka Brahmana, he only drinks milk. And so then at some point, he let him in to the house. But what he did is he hid the Brahmana. I'm not sure where he hid him exactly, perhaps in the laundry basket. But he hid the Brahmana. He told him to hide. Now you stay here, you hide. Now don't say anything. Shh. Yeah. So we could observe the Lord's dancing. That'd be nice, isn't it, to see Lord Caitanya dancing in ecstasy? So then, the night event started. There was the arti and the kirtan, and the ecstasy started swelling, and the pure devotion, and devotees were in euphoric ecstasy on the ways of pure Nam Sankirtan, all of them spontaneously meditating on Krishna's form and pastimes, etc. But then at some point, Lord Chaitanya detected that something wasn't right, and the mood kind of died down. It didn't go where it would normally go, to the heights of great ecstasy. So then he understood, because he's omnipresent, but he's playing the Leela out. So he questioned Srivasa Thakur, is there anybody else who is here? Because it ain't right. The mood is not right as it has been. I don't think he said those words exactly, but you get the idea. So Srivasa Thakur, I guess he must have been taken aback, because he was told to keep the doors locked, which meant you don't let anybody in. But he had let someone in. So he said, oh, there's only one. Oh, my lord, my lord, my lord. There's only one good Brahmana brahmachari. He only drinks milk, and he's completely free of sin. So what did Lord Chaitanya do? He said, quickly, quickly, get him out of this house. Take him from this house. And he says here, like, what power is he to see my dancing? And he's just reading it. Has he become my devotee by drinking milk? So is it by drinking milk we can become a bhakta of the Lord? If it is, we want to drink a lot of milk. But no, so then he raised his arms and he declares, merely by drinking milk one can never attain me. He says, but even if an outcast, that means someone who's cleaning the toilets or whatever, if they take shelter of me, he becomes mine and I become his. Know this without doubt. So even a bangi, or whatever you want to call it, an untouchable person. And yeah, and he says, he continues, but if a sannyasi does not take shelter of me, then he's not mine. I speak the truth. And then he says here, we got it on the slide, what austerities did Gajendra or the monkeys or the gopas perform? Zero. How did they attain me? Tell me. Demons also perform austerities, but what happens to them? Therefore, without taking shelter of me, Sharanagati, no one acquires the qualification to attain me. So you get the point here? So it's not by, again, get back to this point that some people think just by developing sattvic qualities, then that's devotional. Well, that's enough to attain the kingdom of God. No. Okay. It's a nice story. You can read more in detail in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in the Madhya Kanda, if you happen to have a copy. Chapter 23. It's quite an elaborate story. It's wonderful here. What austerities did Gajendra do, or the monkeys, or the gopas? Yeah. So you understand the point here? Yeah. It's not just by these, it isn't that sattvic qualities in of themselves equate with devotion. If the sattvic qualities are not born of devotion, what's that verse? Yasti bhakti bhavati kinchinai gunasya tatasam asate surai. There's a verse in the 5th canto that describes it's from engaging in the path of pure devotion that actually all the pure devotees of all the pure qualities come as a consequence of devotional activity. So it's not just by, acquiring sattvic qualities that one equates being devoted to the Lord. Now, don't misunderstand. Devotees will act on the platform of sattva guna. that's going to be their natural way of moving in the world. Even the pure unadulterated devotees. If you look at Prabhupada's life, everything about him is sattvic, from his drinking water to his writing, with his, the way he's walking, everything is completely transcendental. So there is going to be a manifestation, of sattva. So it doesn't. So I'm just mentioning that it doesn't mean that we don't appreciate sattva. No, it is a but it comes from bhakti. Okay. No, time check. 6:51. Okay. Now let's go to yoga-misra-bhakti. Okay, so we described karma-misra-bhakti, jnana-misra-bhakti. Now we're going to look at yoga-misra-bhakti. It's a bit more simple to go through. So this is devotion, service, devotion, mixed with mystic yoga. Now it's understood by most yogis, it's understood that they have to incorporate some aspect of bhakti in their practice. Yeah, so they will have that. Most yogis, they will have some upasana, some worship that they will do. They may not know, I think I mentioned before, they may not know who Krishna is or what the Supreme is, but when they're doing their yoga, when they're doing their asana, when they're doing their meditation, when they're doing their what's it called, pranayam, they try to, they invoke prayers of the Supreme. Yeah. And that's only to the degree that they mix. So that's, but they want mystic powers. Yeah. So here, so it says, this is 631. Bhagavad Gita. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Okay. Now let me just, Krishna describes the third general category of semblance of devotion. So service mixed with mystic yoga. So mishra means mixed. So yoga-misra-bhakti. So that bhakti is mixed, it is not pure. It's mixed with a desire to gain siddhi or some type of mystical perfections. And they're described in Bhagavatam in great detail as well. Yeah. And nectar devotion. These are things which it's good to hear about this, because as we're progressing in our devotion, we want to make sure we're not desiring to become lighter than the lightest or desiring to create planets, or to desire to elevate ourselves to a transcendental mystical world where everyone's got mystic powers and they can fly. So we have to watch out, because as we engage in bhakti and as we have faith in bhakti, we have faith in the scriptures which speak about bhakti, we get faith in the possibilities of achieving anything you want. Of achieving the planets of the great yogis. So we have to keep, that's the idea of this study, so we can keep ourselves focused on our ultimate goal, which is pure devotion. Anyway, back to here, yoga-misra-bhakti. Okay. So in 11th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna, he explained to Uddhava about an avadut Brahmana, and he recommends the eightfold mystic yoga as an offering to the Lord. So that's yama, niyama, and different levels of absorption to samadhi, etc. Pranayam, pratyahara, pranayam, etc. But offering that to the Lord, offering those perfections to the Lord. Just happened, Marge brings that out here. He mentions the third canto as well of Bhagavatam, perfection of Kardama Muni, mystic practices. And it says Kardama Muni, he's just created a pretty good house for his wife. Palace, floating palace. Wonderful, amazing description of that. And that's Kardama Muni's mystic practices. And eventually the Lord appeared before Kardama Muni and later became his son, Kapila Dev. Now, there's a risk, as we mentioned, actually, there's a risk of devotional service mixed with mystic yoga. It's that its perfections Yeah, for instance, Prapti City, where one can get anything one wants. And Prabhupada mentioned one time, he mentions when he was young, I get the story right, he knew one acquaintance would come. Well, he tells a story of some relative of his who they had this, there's this yogi that the family knew. And one time the yogi asked what he wanted. Or I don't know if it's Prabhupada wanted it or someone in the family asked. And so he said, yeah, I want a pomegranate. So it wasn't pomegranate season. So he took a pomegranate to raise mystic power. He produced a pomegranate all the way from what was it? Israel or something like that. I might have got the country wrong.
Afghanistan.
Yeah, Afghanistan. Thank you, Mother. How did you remember that, Mother Rajkishore? Afghanistan.
Because Afghanistan's got lots of fruits.
Yeah. Afghanistan's famous for pomegranates, fruits. But have you heard that story, Mother Rajkishore?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, it's about, I think I got it about right, isn't it? Yeah.
It is right, yes.
Yeah. So it's there, it's possible. Prapti Siddhi. But it often it can distract the yogi. Yeah. Yeah, actually even yogis can have the power to free themselves from all diseases of the body. Yeah. Sometimes they try and imitate that today, They do yoga to be free of, to be healthy. But actually, it's a perfectional stage where one becomes free, even of old age. Okay, good luck. You can try that one. But they can get the powers to be perpetually youthful, isn't it? Anyone attracted to that? Hope not. Actually, that must be open only to Krishna, Nava Yovanam. He's eternally youthful. But they engage in yoga with some aspect of devotion to gain these mystic perfections. But there's a risk. And here we see the picture of Sabari Muni. Yeah, he's deep under the water. Those who once some us know the story. I mean, I can't see the fish here. I think I cut it out, but it's that he sees. I mean, he's not a bhakta, but he's karma. He's practicing mystic yoga and some devotion to Krishna, not to Krishna probably, but to Brahman or the Supreme. And then he sees two fish, a male and female fish, having sex, and that thought he sees that scene, and one thing leads to another. He starts to think of sensual activities, and it gets more. And the whole story unfolds where this is the picture here, where he's disturbed in his practice of mystic yoga. It's quite a story, and this is in the Bhagavatam, where he eventually he comes out the water, and of course he's looking for a wife. So he goes to a king, and he asks the king, can he marry his daughter? And the king was being quite sarcastic because he looked quite a sight because he'd been under the water for quite a few years, and he didn't look very pleasant. He looked like a what described in the Mahabharata when there was when a frightening wretched yogi, you know, and he laughed and they all laughed and no one wanted to marry him. He looked shocking. This wizened yogi with saggy skin. But then he transformed himself into a dashing youth. And then all the 50 wives or 50 daughters wanted to marry him. So he married all 50 of them. I think he had 10 children with each. Anyway, it's quite a story. But then he comes to his senses again, and again he takes to his practice of, but this time a bit more devotional. So anyway, point here is that he became distracted, yeah, from the goal. Yeah. So yeah, Subari Muni. So he was victimized by the very material energy he thought he had mastered. He thought he achieved mastery over his senses, but then he was victimized. And there's a whole story about that, as we know. There's a backstory. He made some offenses to Garuda, to the whole story there. Okay. Yikes. It's just hit 7 o'clock. Well, that completes this chapter actually. So perhaps it might be a good point to stop. And next week, we'll continue this subject. analyzing it a bit more, okay, to help us to appreciate the simple, wonderful activities of pure devotion, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. But Maharaj will a bit more description of the details. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this discussion. Any closing comments or questions here? Vijay Krishna Prabhu, please. Yeah.
Yes, Murli Prabhu, you said that you told us the story of the impeccable Brahmana who impeccable in a sense because he
Drinking milk.
his diet, yes, only milk, and you also said that Lord Caitanya said that for us to become his devotees, this process of only drinking milk is not enough. You said that yes, you said that Lord Caitanya said that we need to take refuge in Lord Caitanya.
Yeah, we need to take to the principles of bhakti.
Yes, and that is my question. How to take refuge in Lord Caitanya? That would be my question.
Yeah, well, that's what we're learning here in this study, how to take refuge. The foremost and important instruction, as we might understand, is to take shelter of the Yuga Dharma of chanting his holy name. Let's just keep it like that for now. Yeah, is to take up the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and engage in service to the Sankirtan movement. Yeah, and to read.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it sounds great. So you're already doing it. Just keep going, and also is to understand about the principles of pure devotion by doing studies like this and reading Prabhupada's books. So just to do exactly what we are doing. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu, of course. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful Radhastami. It's Radhastami on which day is Radhastami? Saturday? Sunday?
Saturday.
Sunday,
Oh,
yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah, have a wonderful.
Thank you for wonderful class, Prabhu.
Thank you. And let's get
Thank
together
you.
next week. I can send out a reminder again next week. So join us if you can. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai. The Gauda Premanati, Hari Bol. Okay, I'm going to press the red button. End meeting for all.